Welcome back to That's Church. I'm Emily, here with my sister Ashley. In this episode, we're thrilled to introduce you to a special couple, Onkar and Bryn Lewis. Before we dive into the conversation with them, we want to reflect on our recent event held on November 2nd at the Compass Gallery. It was truly incredible. It was exactly what we wanted it to be. It was super authentic. The presenters were seamless and they really meshed together. They shared their unique faith perspectives and it was very real. The audience brought smart, intentional questions that really deepened the dialogue, and all of the presenters gave honest, direct insight that really resonated with so many people. We were moved by feedback from the attendees that also stated that really felt like they'd found a home. Some even said that they had passed spiritual anger, and they said that they were now embracing the next phase of their journey, and that the event really helped them to move on to that next phase. It was super awesome. Looking ahead, we're excited to announce that our next event on National Women's Day, March 8th, is going to be at the Compass Gallery once again. It's going to be awesome. It will be focused on the feminine divine, and we hope to make this a biannual event alongside our interfaith gathering in the summer or the fall. So 2 events each year, that's the goal. We'll see what happens. But mark your calendars for the one on March 8th. Today's guests, Onkar and Bryn, really embody the beautiful dance of interfaith marriage. Onkar was raised in a Hindu household, and Bryn grew up in an LDS household. They share their journey of merging distinct religious perspectives while also creating a unified spiritual foundation for their cute family. They delve into the challenges and the beauty of honoring both traditions and raising their daughter in a very respectful way to both faiths. And their insights on identity, spirituality, and the traditions they cherish is so interesting. Their warmth, openness, and humor make for a very heartfelt and enlightening conversation. We know you're going to love hearing from them. Let's go. All right. So, Bryn, tell us a little bit about your home. Like growing up. What was your household like within religion? And like, kind of what were your beliefs growing up? Did you believe it right from the beginning? Were you, like skeptical? Just tell us a little bit about growing up in the church.
So my family was very traditional doctrinally, in, just regular LDS doctrine, which this audience I'm sure is very familiar with. And but that said, like culturally, we were a little different. I'm an only child, which made us kind of different. And then my mom also worked full time. My mom and dad both worked full time, as musicians, no less, out of the home. So, I grew up in like a very egalitarian home, and church wise, I was a very pious. I would go as far to say child and teenager. I would often crack the whip on my parents. I kept everyone in line, and I would say I was so like religion and God has been very, very important to me from the beginning, and the church, honestly, from the time I was little. And I was I had so much conviction that like the church was the church, the only true church, had all the answers, that like not out of like, trying to be tricky, but I just really thought the church knew everything. I was kind of pushing the envelope and kind of bugging my, seminary teachers, Sunday school teachers and stuff about like, oh, well, what about this? What about this? Because I just really thought we were going to get there,
Yeah.
and so I've always was really, really into church, but also like from a really young age kind of like felt like pushing on like women and the racist history of the church, the sexism, the racism, and and I would say for most of my young life, like up through part of my undergrad, like I really kind of came up with answers within the church for why those things like happened and needed to happen and were ordained of God, and like we're doing something different because that's what's right, but back then like that was what needed to happen. And then as I got a little older, growing up, I evolved and felt comfortable saying there's lots of good things about the church. And also, I think there's things that were not supposed to happen and we're not ordained of God and we're mistakes of people. And, um, you know, now I'm in a place where it's like, I feel fine saying that. But growing up, I was just very iron rod.
Mm. What would you say helped you discover those answers of like, because I feel very similar to that. That really resonates with me. The, coming to the conclusion of like, okay, these are human beings who make mistakes. And maybe some of these things were either misinterpreted from God or we're just plain mistakes because we're humans and we're not perfect. Like what helped you come to those conclusions?
Honestly, like a lot of it was I went to law school at BYU, and like part of that, I wouldn't say it was too long before law school. So I was in my early 20s when I started kind of like having those ideas, and I think it was just like law school in a big way, like kind of teaching me how to like think a little more broadly and like test things, and also like live with I don't know what's the word, like live with parallel contradictions, like that not everything has to be like in one beautiful straight thing. It's like this can be true and this can be unrelated and not true, or related and not true, and like these can all exist at the same time. And then I think also I started I've always been, since I was little, like, pushing on women in the priesthood and the divine feminine, and really into that whole idea. And the more I, started to feel frustrated about that, and the more I was like pushed down about it, I was like, this is not the God that I know. Like, I feel like I know God. Like the good news is like everything that I've gained from church, like I feel close to God, and this is not it. Like this is not it. And so just kind of getting there. And then also, honestly, I started getting into the women's suffrage movement, like the history of it. And the more I read, the more everything I heard about in the church from people I love and who are wonderful, and from leadership about why women didn't have the priesthood, is like truly everything that the anti-suffrage women said about why women shouldn't vote. And I was like, oh, this is not this is really too parallel. Anyway, so I just feel like the more I learned, the more I was like, okay, the church can be really good for me in a lot of ways, and also be hurting me and a lot of people, and have hurt a lot of people. So
I think it's interesting that you kind of saw those things as a young person, because I think a lot of times we all just hear what we hear from our parents and from church, and later on, I think when we become adults, we're like, wait, what do I actually believe? And I think then, for me anyway, I think as an adult, really an much older adult, I kind of started to think less binary. And our our parents, well, our mom mostly is not super binary, and she's a little bit more dances to the beat of her own drummer, and lives in the gray a little bit more. But I don't know that was discussed like that. She's just kind of a free spirit, and I think Ash and I are very much that way too. But I couldn't define that, or like really see like the what's the word? I couldn't really see the specifics of that, I guess, in the church until I was older, and really was able to kind of step back from the echo chamber that I'd always been in. So I think it's really cool that you were mature enough from an early age, and you're still very young, but to kind of come up and like connect with a God and realize that this is the God that you believe in, and it may not be exactly the God that you were told to was God. Yes, that was a little tricky, but
hopefully we're still getting there. Yeah, I by no means have anything all figured out, but we're working on it.
Yeah, but I think it's great that you're your own person, and That's awesome. So Onkar, what about you? What was your life like in religion? You kind of hit on it a little bit.
Yeah, it's growing up. It was kind of different households. To be very candid with you, my granddad um, actually was a spiritual leader in our community, and our my his house used to be an open house. Anybody and seek spiritual guidance from him. He never left his house because he had like daily prayer schedule. Used to meditate more than 5-6 hours a day, well into his late 80s. Uh, and it was, I mean, it's kind of unbelievable. But my uncle moved to Arizona, and one of the stories we got told is that he could describe my uncle's apartment in Arizona, how it looked like, without ever seeing a single picture. So my granddad was very religious, never touched alcohol or non-vegetarian food. In fact, non-vegetarian food was not cooked at home. There was a time until which we were living in an extended family kind of scenario, which was very prevalent in India back in the day. And we never cooked non-vegetarian food under his household. But my dad was the first one to actually venture out and was kind of a rebel in his earlier age. My granddad's very strict and very orthodox values, similar to perhaps how Bryn is sometimes going through her own questions of what really is true and what's not. And but my like I said, that dad was more open-minded towards other thought belief systems, and you can be Hindu, and in fact, somebody tells me you can be atheist and still be Hindu. Like you don't necessarily need to believe in God to be a Hindu. So it's more, sometimes it took more of a form of a cultural identity than a religious one. But throughout my lifetime, I've never eaten non-vegetarian food on Tuesdays unless it's a mistake.
Wow.
And that's true for most parts of India, except from one part, I think, where in Bengal, which is East India, you can eat fish. I have not eaten non-vegetarian food on Tuesdays, and that's something that we are trying to stick to, with even with Jasmira. So that we can come to that question later. But to answer your question, there were a couple of households I grew up at, and by the time I came to US when I was 18 years old, as a teenager, you're kind of going through your rebellion phase and questioning everything. And Hinduism is a religion that's old enough where you can question it now. I'm not sure if that were true 500 years back, but at least now you can really, really question it. And so household-wise, I would almost say that I was a non-believer to a certain degree until later in my life. So as far as household is concerned, I grew up in a very liberal household, and my parents were very liberal for the most part.
So interesting. What is the significance with Tuesday? And maybe we missed that, but what is the significance there?
Yeah, so it's I call myself a non-believer during my teen years, and yet not eat non-vegetarian food on Tuesdays, and that's because of cultural. Like they say, never be the first one to break a family norm, and there are different gods in Hinduism. One of the gods is Lord Hanuman, and Tuesdays is supposed to be his day. So to honor him, we usually, even people in my family who eat non-vegetarian food on Tuesday, it was kind of like maybe it is truly a family thing. That's not universal, but India is kind of, you can say, it's a country where Sweden and Spain are in the same country. So if that's the case, the cultures and the rituals can actually vary quite a bit from one region to another, one state to another, one family to the next one.
Oh, wow. Well, to honor you and your family, I won't eat meat on Tuesdays. but I'm a vegetarian.
She's fully vegetarian, so.
But that's for you guys, okay? That's for you. That is really cool.
I think it's really cool. I kind of hope that it's just your family, like, so that it's just a tradition that's special to you. You know, I really like traditions and rituals and things like that. I think it's fascinating. So that is, I think it's really cute if it's just something that's done in your family or in your culture, you know, however it's done.
I'll just say about his family traditions, one that I love, that in the, you know, broader India, when you greet people, you say namaste, you know, and it's in his family, they particularly honored this Hanumanji god and also the mother goddess. And so instead of saying namaste whenever we see each other, we say Jai Mata Di, which is like victory to the mother, like honoring the mother goddess. And so and I think that's a family thing, right? And
yeah, that is actually, and if you want me to dive into Hinduism, I can. There are main trinity of gods who are male. So it's Brahma, who's the creator, Vishnu, who kind of is the caretaker, and then Shiva, who's the destroyer of the world, of the universe. And parallelly, there is a feminine divinity. And my granddad, as orthodox as he was, and he was not comfortable with his daughters or daughter-in-laws working and being professional. He was a worshiper of female divinity, and we wish each other Jai Mata Di, and we pray to the feminine divine. So that women are put on pedestals to a certain degree. Yet there are hypocrisies in a lot of ways. Don't get me wrong. It's not all roses in any religion you look at.
Sure.
But certainly growing up, it did help me have a good, balanced, and respectful attitude towards the female divine.
Wow. Yes, that obviously I think resonates with all of us so much. I know my sister enough to know that is very special for both of us, because we both believe in a feminine divine. And thank you also for saying that there's, you know, some, how do you say it, like nuances within your religion and different things surrounding women, and some of those might not be always positive. That, like, owning things like that, I think can only better our religions. So thank you for saying that. And I think it's just beautiful that you, even your father or your grandfather, who was a little more traditional, still worshipped a feminine divine, or at least talked about a feminine divine, because honestly, just the representation of any type of feminine divine is also so crucial to all of our religions, I believe.
I love the connection within tradition as well. Like, and I think that's why I was kind of hoping it's just your family, because it just shows like a unity within a smaller group of people, and a connection that if they're connected, then you're this family unit that's connected through tradition, the semblance of that, the idea of that, like preceding your own little space. I don't know. I'm not making a lot of sense.
Beautiful traditions to pass on to your daughter. Yeah.
It actually makes sense. It's an interesting dichotomy, because, like, on one hand, that establishes your identity, and like, I'm the guy who doesn't eat vegetarian food on Tuesday, and it can be soothing. At the same time, you want to fight that identity if you think of the bigger Hindu belief system, that, like, my identity is not rooted in, or like, if you think you're inferior or superior to anybody because you're doing or not doing something, that's where you've lost the plot. If when you think of yourself as superior or inferior to anyone, so you want to say that all of us, and this is going to sound very woo-woo and very difficult to do, but like, it's if your identity is beyond your body, and perhaps it's easier for me as a guy to say even beyond your gender, I'm not on the receiving end of a lot of reality of what it is to be a woman in this world. And we can go in all kinds of discriminations that take place, from pay levels to whatever. I don't want to turn this into a political conversation too much. However, it's it's as much as it makes me feel good about myself that I can resist eating non-vegetarian food, because trust me, it's happened. The clock has turned midnight, and I'm like, "Where's that chicken curry?" So
Yes,
it's happened, and I'm kind of ashamed to say it because it's not the point. The point is to refrain yourself and be okay with it, and not be pining for it as you're obsessing in your head. And that's what I'm missing out on. So it's a beautiful struggle right now.
Oh, I like that. Beautiful struggle.
Yeah. Ash and I have been talking with some friends about identity, and I think like there's a lot of things that we're told when we're kids, like that you kind of take. We were talking about like body image and like if you're told that you're beautiful, or if you're told that you're skinny, or then you think you have, that becomes your identity and you hold on to that. And I think it's so important as an adult to figure out, I mean, we all go through a process of figuring out our identity, but I think some people don't, like some people just hold on to the identity that was given to them as a child. And I think it's so important to like look at all of those things that identify you and pick the ones that you want to identify you, And so I love that you chose a tradition, and you could keep it or not. And it does kind of identify you that you're able to do it. Like you have the willpower to do it, and that's awesome. But that doesn't have to be your identity going forward. But that's great. I mean, it's a good thing, And yeah, I love that we can always change. Like there's a past, a present, and a future, and our future doesn't have to be our past. So
Amen.
I love that you said that. Okay, so tell us how you guys met and how have you navigated two religions together? And you talked a little bit about your bishop, or your parents' bishop, being super supportive, and in the wedding, at least. Have your families been supportive right from the beginning and along the way?
Well, we met on a dating app, and the one was Bumble, because that's important.
Shout out to Bumble.
And
people will ask. So
yeah. And we connected over a love for chocolate chip cookies, and then we got married.
That was all. The cookies were it.
Yeah. I'll let Onkar talk about his side of kind of navigating things. But I would say, on my end, a lot of the navigating the two different religions was more internal than like, figuring it out, than having to figure it out with each other. Onkar is so supportive and interested. And I never felt like, from my end, it was something we had to really kind of like manage between us. But on like my personal end, it was like when we, were dating and then like started to really kind of think about marriage, it was the time to like very literally confront like the things that I thought were not true about my religion, or not, God given. Like, are we really still going to be together forever if that's the way heaven works? Then, like, am I actually giving up an eternal family and not going to reach the highest level of exaltation? Like, if I do this, is that something that I really believe is not true, and just kind of things like that. And so when, like, one example is like when we went to reserve wedding venue, even like that far along, it was so exciting. And then we left and I had a breakdown because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not getting married in the temple, and so that was kind of like just navigating that on my end. was, my journey. But I do feel like I've come to a place that, like, and of course before we got married, but like I do feel like that's not the way it's going to work. I don't think that God is going to be like, oh, you two have to separate because you didn't like check the box. I think we're a loving family who love each other and try to do really well for each other. And if we want to be together forever and that's available to anyone, I think we'll choose it. and and so similarly, like, we continue to navigate, like, this is very ongoing. Like, when we had Jasmira, it kind of happened all over again. It's like, oh my gosh, are we not going to be like, am I really comfortable with, not having this temple thing? And like, and I really am, but now we're navigating, like, we are raising her largely in the church. And it's like, is she going to hear every Sunday from her peers and leaders that she's not going to be with her family forever and that her family is different and not as, you know, blessed by God and not going to be together forever? Like, that's a scary thought. And so we're kind of navigating how to, immerse her in the wonderful community that's around us and also like really establish like safety and positivity and God connection on our own as well. So that's something we still navigate.
Yeah. And how can you not? When you grow up in the church, there are so many comments made that are,
Yeah.
like families are forever. But you then think, well, is that just related to this church? And kind of like you were saying. And I'm sure, though, that the struggle in that and the pain has brought you to where you are now. And like, I can only speak for myself in saying that the struggles I've gone through with those kinds of topics have only helped me grow. They like refined me. What is that like? Putting pressure on the diamond to make it more sparkle more. Like you have to go through the hard stuff to get to the good stuff, and the knowledge that you've gained, I'm sure, along the way, you wouldn't trade for the world.
Exactly. And yeah, I guess I would add just that, like, just what you're saying, like the journey of like coming to a place where I feel like, yeah, this, like, is not ringing true to me. It has been like a spiritual journey of faith. Like, and I feel like I would have thought, even if, several years ago, I would have thought like, oh, that's like a distancing moment, but it's been very much the opposite for me. It's like, oh, I really like connected. Like, I've had to really connect and make sure that these are things that I believe in and why. And it's been like a faith promoting in my own way.
Yes.
That
yes.
totally makes sense. Yeah.
Yes. If I could just tell bishops and ward members one thing, it's that sometimes when people are inactive, I'm doing air quotes on that, they're not inactive from their spirituality. It just means they're not physically at the church. It doesn't always mean that they're distant from the spirit or from knowledge or from other things that could be gained. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. How has your family been? Have they been supportive?
They really have been. Yeah. I think they had like their moments. I mean, they're very traditional LDS, and I think they had their moments of kind of probably similar to mine where they're like, oh my gosh, like this is actually happening. And how do we feel about it? But Onkar is very easy to love and trust. And I think they've been really like glad that I found him at every point. And yeah, they've been really supportive and yeah, luckily very supportive.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So happy to hear that.
You really are such a power couple. Like when we met you, it just, your love is obvious and your respect for each other is so obvious, and your respect for each other's belief systems was so commendable. Like we were just fascinated by it. That there was just no question. You could just tell there was no question that you would be respectful to one another. It's awesome. What about you, Onkar? Do you feel like have there been different ways that you feel like you've navigated your religions together, and has your family been fully supportive?
Yeah, Emily, I think you hit it right on the head about family's involvement. And Bryn have had to ask herself sometimes tough questions, and it's there's fair amount of soul searching, I feel blessed that our families have not pressed hard on that. Like, if this is happening, see you when we see you kind of deal. Our families have been very affectionate and have given us space to figure ourselves out and how this is going to work out. Are there lines of respect that we try not to cross? Absolutely. I feel like that's the level of respect you can offer your loved ones, while they are being accepting of you, despite what may be a difficult situation for them as well. I mean, ultimately, they would love to see Bryn with them as a family unit in heaven, and to follow their system would be a convenient position for them to take. Same with my parents. There might be more convenient positions that uh, they may prefer, but they, as far as letting us be in making our decisions, they have been very supportive. So in that way, navigation has been easier. And for me, I come from a doctrine system that was not that strictly enforced, frankly speaking. There might be Hindu families that would be completely opposed to the union or have a far more negative reaction to it. And thankfully, our families have allowed us that kind of space where we've not have had to fight them. We have had to fight ourselves a lot of times. Like with regards to our young one, like would she be? What would we say about her consuming caffeine or alcohol? And how does she navigate through when personally, for me, Bryn and I were talking about this. For me, not having a belief system and an identity that respects and has a very strong presence of God in her life would be far worse than being a non-believer like I was partially. Perhaps I'm being a slightly hypocrite.
No.
I'm being harsh when I'm saying I was non-believer. I questioned, I guess. I was more agnostic, I would say, at a time. So nonetheless, it's hasn't been that harsh for us. We've fought over what cell phone is better, Android versus iPhone, far more than we fought over any of the other stuff.
The ultimate
they
debate.
have this compromise, no doubt. Like, for example, there's a Hindu ceremony of Mundan where they shave off hair of a young one when they're like below the age of 3, for sure, once. And it symbolizes kind of separation from your previous life and a fresh start. And I'm not sure why shaving of head is needed for that. Nonetheless, when we got our first ultrasound, not quite ultrasound, I might be wrong here, but when Bryn first saw Jasmira, she was so happy with her hair. I was like, there's no way we are going to be able to have a Mundan.
That's a tradition that might not stick.
It's not going to happen.
So I was like, maybe symbolically I'll cut a little lock off or something.
Yes, that's the same. Just a tiny little piece.
Wow. But it's we are very fortunate that we found partners who have made it easier to introspect rather than having to stand up. We had for Jasmira, we had her blessing when she was 3 months old. If Bryn may correct me. And obviously, I'm not part of priesthood, so I did not partake. We did, however, think that both of us should be involved in blessing her. So after the church ceremony, when we were at home, we did say our part and give our blessings to her. And without it, I think we didn't need to dilute the church or take such a strong stance that if you're not accepting of my spouse and me, then we are not going to do it. I think we are trying to straddle that line, very fine line, that you can be still respectful of whatever the tradition is and walk the parallel line, as Bryn was saying earlier, of what really matters to you. And what really matters to us is, in this case, is a strong sense of community, a strong sense of belongingness. And if there are times where one of us is the only one who can walk that line, that's fine. We kind of consider each other an extension of us. So if Bryn goes to Paris and I'm not going, to me that's okay. It's fine. It's as long as
She's like, okay,
Like,
and
is that happening?
Jasmira's too
I'll
young.
take it.
That's
She'll
what
take
happened
it.
right now. But I think 4 or 5 years from now, they might be taking trips to Disney, which I may not be part of.
get it in
Disney's
writing.
not the religion at our home. So there's
Okay.
Hinduism, there's LDS, and then there's Disney.
Yes, the ultimate religion. Oh, and the
That
most
is awesome.
expensive. But
Yeah, that is awesome.
oh man,
It makes me so happy. Sorry, Ash.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll let you talk in a second. First, me. Say it like that. It makes me so happy that you both did your own blessings after the blessing at church. Like, I love that so much. Not only that Bryn got to do it, but also that Onkar did. Like, both of you. That is so amazing. And actually, my husband recently has, when we've done or kids like school blessings, like my husband will do a blessing before they go to school or whatever. And this last year he was like, I'm not going to do it. You just pray for them. Like, you just do your own blessing in prayer form before it. And it'll just be you this time, and it could have been both of us. He may have done one too anyway, but I thought it was really kind and respectful of him to even think of that, and I love that you both are so on the same page with that. Like, and you feel very equal, and like you have very similar beliefs in what you have discovered to be your belief system. And I think that's unique. I think it's great that you give grace where your families do lack, even if there's any lack at all in their support. And maybe support's not the right word, but if there's a if it takes a minute for them to understand it fully or to fully embrace it. You mentioned that a little bit, Bryn, but I think there is so much grace to be given for that, because everyone comes from a different background and perspective. And that's, if they're more traditional LDS members, especially, I think that's hard to let go of some of those idealisms, and you have these expectations of your kids from when they're little. And this is, what you always envisioned for them. And when that changes, I'm sure it takes a minute to like process that for yourself and almost grieve the expectation that you had. And so I think it's really kind of you. I mean, you were very positive. It sounds like your families were very supportive, but even in giving them space, like give them space to kind of process the whole situation along the way as well.
And it does sound like your families and both of you are focused on the love and the respect. And I just think that is such an important thing, especially in a mixed faith marriage, is just to hold respect for each other. And you don't have to agree on everything, but you can still just show kindness. And we don't need to be putting other people's ideas down or different thoughts down just because we don't agree with them. We can both, kind of like Bryn mentioned earlier, like both things can exist within the same space.
And I'd like to just add about blessing. We are fortunate as well that the two faiths have a lot of similarities they're not the same, or there are differences as well, but blessing is such an integral part of Hindu ethos. Back in the day, people were supposed to be so pious and didn't speak a lie, that when they blessed you, say live long or have kids or do well in school, the third one being the most important one, of course, being an Indian, it's that whatever they said is said with such pureness that being able to bless somebody. It's kind of Hindu ethos, and blessing is, for lack of a better word, one of the greatest joys of life. I wanted to say blessing, but let's use joy. That you can truly wish well to someone, and there's not a bigger honor to get blessing from whomever is willing to bestow it upon us. So it's for me, it's rather easy to accept it, whether I am part of that circle at that time or not. It really doesn't matter.
Wow.
And I think a lot of men could be prideful about that, like that, and just not want to be part of it at all because they didn't get to be part of it in that setting. So I think you both seem very comfortable in your own skin and confident in who you are.
Yeah. I just want to say that
we're trying to get there. We are doing a masterful job of pretending.
There's so much
fake it till you make it. I just love how much I love that you both are interested in bringing pieces of your religion into your home and then also creating your own bits of your own religion. Like, it's such a beautiful reminder to mixed faith marriages, but also to everyone, that like the more knowledge we have and the more we reach out beyond ourselves and our religions, like the better it can be and the more unified we can become.
Yes.
Yeah, and we don't have to dilute ourselves. It's there are places that compromise is needed, but if you can really focus on what matters to you, you can be uncompromising on that one, and it's fine. And it's not like we haven't fought over this matter. There have been misunderstandings. Don't get me wrong, but it's they've been far and few in between. If you have a support system as wonderful.
Yes,
I love that you said you don't have to dilute yourself. That's so awesome.
You're not diluting yourselves. You're both bringing who you are to the table, and you both love and accept each other. I just am trying to like suck the wisdom off of you guys because there's so much that to gain here, and I can't wait for our listeners to hear this one.
I think also, like, within the LDS church, we are told so much that we're all brothers and sisters, and that it's all, this bigger plan that we're all going to be connected and come together. And that's what the temple is, And so the more that we can connect and understand each other here on earth as well, I think the better, if we grow love for each other and understanding and listen to each other's perspectives, especially when they're different, that only will establish a stronger foundation for the eternal family that we expect to have, in each other and in the whole world of humanity. So we've already talked about this a little bit, but can you, and if you're done saying what you want to say about this, we can move on. But what is your biggest struggle within your religion?
For me, my biggest struggle within my religion is that I do really believe that, and it is a struggle because there's a lot of really wonderful things that the church has given me and that are important to me. But at the same time, I do think the church has caused a lot of harm with polygamy and, racist policies. And now I think with the way it treats the LGBTQ plus community. And I think that the church does real harm, and is very likely aware of it in a lot of cases, but continues to insist that it's perfect and that it doesn't do anything wrong and that its leaders don't do anything wrong. And I think that it would just be so healing and so nice and honestly help retain membership if it could say, like, you know what, this was wrong and now we're fixing it because we're a living, breathing church of Christ, and we're figuring it out. I think that's my biggest struggle. I hope that's not too negative.
No, that's so, yes, it is. I think there's so many people in and out of the church that feel the same way. And I think you really nailed it when you said just taking ownership of it and apologizing could go such a long way. It could do so much good just for them to do that.
Yeah. And I think that encompasses a lot of the things that people struggle with within the church. I think, like you said, an apology or something like that could encompass so many things that are struggles for people and really do a lot of healing. I'm just going to mention this, and we may cut it out, but I was just going to mention the thing. Are you aware of the post that the church made about, female women and
Yes.
in the church, and the outpouring of all of the comments from many women, and then today, ironically, the Instagram had a platform wide issue, and none of the comments were available, but people thought it was the church silencing women. I actually thought it was a very awesome thing that the church came out, and they didn't totally apologize, but they did come out and say, we see you, and we're going. And let me backtrack, not the church, but the church's social media people came out and said, we will get this to the leadership of the church, and we hear you, and we want to listen, and we want to, kind of do something about it, which there's a lot of people that struggled with that, saying too little, too late, but I think you have to start somewhere, and to me, I thought that was huge, because they really haven't apologized in any form before now. I mean, maybe, I'm sure there's something that I don't know of, but it's very, very, very rare. And so for them to make a statement in any form of an apology, I thought was really a huge step forward in a positive way. So, and very unfortunate timing with the platform.
I was not aware that they did that. I knew that it was that they claimed it was a mistake, but I should look up the actual statement, because I would love to see that. That is cool.
Yeah. And a lot of people are like, well, that's not enough, and there needs to be more done. But like I said, you got to start somewhere. So to me,
sure,
I agree with Bryn that an apology would go a long way, and just kind of humanize the church. I think it would help people to see that it's a little bit more human and not just a robotic system, and full of tradition that is outdated as well.
I was just thinking,
Anyway,
I'd love to have that in an episode. So I'm like, oh, dang it, this won't be super relevant.
That's true.
People will be like, wait, what did I miss?
Will remember it. They'll remember it.
Yeah, maybe.
It's a big deal right now.
Know. Yeah, maybe they will.
It will definitely be a thing. Yeah, I'm sure that people remember. And right after the BYU thing as well. So anyway, interesting timing. Yeah. Okay. Oh, I was just going to say, I kind of wonder if it's, sorry, just off the books. I kind of wonder if it's the social media guy that's now working for the church or communications guy that is more liberal, and he's like an LGBTQ ally. So he's a little bit more open-minded. And so I wonder if it's him being like, we got to get ahead of this, because this is out of control, and we don't want to continue to silence people, And so maybe he was just like, we're doing this, and which would be awesome.
That would be, I could totally see that. And also, I'm just really glad the comments popped back up. I'm glad they didn't fully delete, whether it was the church or whether it was a mistake or a glitch. I'm glad they came back around, so that all of that good knowledge and info wasn't lost.
Yes. And it was a glitch. I mean, it wasn't I went through comments of everyone that I followed, and you couldn't see the comments for anybody, any account. So
interesting.
We can give church a little bit credit here. Then playing devil's advocate, pun intended, in the sense that communication can be, propaganda can be such a big arm. So if they have somebody who's LGBTQ plus sensitive or aware, that's putting, they can be very inflexible about that also. The very fact that such a person is in that position, that speaks volume. I maybe not saying the most favorite thing for some people, but definitely religious organization sometimes has to move very slowly by its very design. Because a single thing you say, Catholic Church right now, Pope in some circles is not a favorite person for the statements he's made in the last 2-3 years. It's a religious organization sometimes moves at its own pace, and I think we can tip our hat when something good happens.
For sure. I agree. It's a big ship to move. the church is huge, and that is a huge ship to move. And they do kind of have to do things incrementally and a little bit at a time. And also it is so general as well. Like, I think it's important to discover what's best for you and your family, but they have to kind of speak from a general position, because anyway, which I wish they would say, like, discover what's best for you and your family, which, is
that would be helpful. Yes, for
your
sure,
own inspiration,
for sure.
which they do say we can be inspired for ourselves, but maybe emphasize a little bit. Anyway, moving on.
So it's easy to take a better than thou perspective on things, but I don't see as many Hindu women priests, if any, for that matter. So women have been on the receiving end of not as much position of influence in almost every religion. I feel like that's something that would be fantastic if the world changes in that direction. Other than that, I do feel that Hindus recently have had an outcry of victimhood to a large degree because other religions are coming, and whether through propaganda converting people or forcefully. Supposedly 200, 300 years ago, when Muslim kings were ruling India, Islam was forced upon a fair amount of people. There has been an overreaction, I feel like, where mosques are being destroyed currently in India and building Hindu temples instead. And in my eyes, God owns the universe. I don't think for a particular piece of land she would, or they would be that impacted. So religion has been used as a, unfortunately, propaganda tool, I feel like, and people's feelings of religion invokes a lot of feelings in us. Sometimes it's of victimhood, and that may be to a certain degree true with LDS church as well, where there is a victim complex to a certain degree. And I feel as in our personal life, we need to not have our past dictate our present and future. Perhaps the same is true for our religions that we followed, that the anguish and really maybe sometimes genuine pain of going through certain difficulties, that doesn't have to define our respective religions' present actions.
Oh, wow. You missed some great stuff, Em, but you'll see it later. It is so important to remember that every religion has a past and a history. And you also have to consider that the world was not the same as it is now. So you have to mix in the cultural and the societal impacts on those religions as well.
Yeah, for sure. I totally agree.
So our next question, we touched on maybe some struggles that you guys have had within your religion. So now would you be willing to share like a powerful experience or just some special event that you've experienced within your faith?
I can go first. I feel like I've had lots of wonderful spiritual experiences, and I feel really lucky that I grew up in a church for all its flaws that also like really gave me like a deep faith and like expectation almost of like powerful and real experiences with God. And that's something that I get to carry with me through my life. Like I'll always be grateful for that. I like, for a couple examples, I remember when I was like maybe 14 or 15 and I was praying. I don't even think it was the first time I was praying about the Book of Mormon, but I had finished the Book of Mormon and read the Moroni's challenge to pray. And so I was like, okay, here we go. So excited. And I just knelt down by my bedside and prayed to ask about the Book of Mormon. Oh, sorry. And I just felt the biggest, most real, profound, settling of God just upon me. And I just heard, I love you so much. And I just felt divinely and profoundly loved there was nothing about the Book of Mormon. It was just like, I love you. And I will never forget how big and how real that felt. I'll never forget it. And like similarly on a church note, like the importance of family history and our ancestors, I feel like I've had lots of very real, very powerful experiences with my ancestors and my family members that have passed on. And like for instance, when I was giving birth to Jasmira, we just got, to that place between a rock and a hard place where it's like, you gotta push the baby out. But I was so exhausted and so much pain, and I just didn't think I could do it. And I just felt the very real presence of an ancestor of mine, Nancy Bean, who was a pioneer. And I've had really, truly many experiences with her in particular. I just feel like she comes into my life often. And I learned after this that she actually was a midwife in her life. But
No way.
I just felt Nancy Bean while I was in this terrible place, and pushed Jasmira out, and everything was fine. And I just felt her in a big way, and a lot of my other, just female ancestors gathering around me. And so I feel really lucky to have that as part of my faith tradition, just the expectation of spiritual experiences.
That is so beautiful. We have had a lot of similar experiences with ancestors, mostly our grandma and grandpa. And so we believe that very strongly as well. And I had a really similar story with the Book of Mormon also. It's so interesting. I've wondered, and I've heard other people's stories with the Book of Mormon and wondered, why is that the story? Why is that the thing that people feel the most love? That's when we feel God's love, so profoundly. And we feel like, oh my gosh, this is and maybe it is that the Book of Mormon's true. I don't know that about the historicity of the Book of Mormon. I have some questions there and things, but I think it's probably that we're just the most, the promise is a very powerful promise, to have a broken heart or a contrite spirit and what is it? Broken heart and contrite spirit. Yeah. And to just pray with all of the power that is within you. And so I think just that recommendation is us just praying to a higher power, and we received that love, from a heavenly God of sorts. I think that's, anyway, it's interesting because I do question some things with the Book of Mormon. And so I think, but that's the thing I fall back on with my faith. That's the experience that I had that I look back on and be like, well, I had this though, whenever I have a question or whatever, that's my rod, that's the strength that I pull from. And it's an interesting one. And I think part of it probably is also that there's a lot of good in the Book of Mormon and a lot of, experiences of great experiences and great. I feel the Spirit a lot reading it and learning from it. So anyway, those are my own personal thoughts.
I know. As soon as she mentioned the Book of Mormon, I thought, Emmy's had a similar experience with that. Yes. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah. And what about you, Onkar?
Not as profound as Bryn's experiences, but when I look back now, I have had some amount of hardship in my lifetime as well. I went through a pretty painful divorce and really found myself praying multiple times in a day. I am so thankful for it. I mean, I know it sounds cheesy and kind of the thing to say, but obviously I wouldn't have met Bryn if I didn't go over that hardship. And praying day in and day out truly felt like the divine would take care of it. I felt like I was being hugged constantly and being told that it's going to turn out fine. So it's my younger self would have been disappointed. But the truth is, one realizes that being human being does mean that you are weak, that not there's necessarily something wrong with you. It's, I used to think I'm so smart and I've got everything figured out. That's until life really throws a harsh one your way and you stumble, and then you realize that it's not only spiritually gratifying and peaceful to pray, it's actually liberating in a manner of speaking, that you don't have to carry the burden of, I'm going to figure this out and it's all me, and it's, you don't have to feel alone, and that's okay. Being weak is to recognize, or recognizing your weakness is to admit your humanness, if that's a word, or your humanity rather.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's the truth of the matter is, if you're going through a hard time and if you're feeling alone, a prayer goes such a long way, and that's something that I still do regularly. If there's a moment of where there's a moment of doubt, or just, you go through life, no matter how privileged a life you live, you feel like you're being picked upon, and why is this happening to you? I mean, we all think that something really horrible is happening to us that we are completely undeserving of. I think most of the times that's true. We are not deserving of that. But I don't think we will find divine until we go through hardships.
Wow. Yep. That's church. Mic drop. Yep. I love what you said about prayer. I think prayer is such an important part of life, and it's not always what people think it is. I think, at least for myself, my prayers are more of a meditation. It's my time at night to think about my loved ones. And it's weird, but it brings me a lot of peace, and I'm able to sleep well once I just sort of go through that in my mind. And so I do think prayer can be so different between different individuals. So I'm so glad that you brought that up.
If I may add to this, I think it's Mr. Rogers, a movie Bryn and I saw recently, where he there's so many parts to that movie that are so unbelievable and just marvelous. But there's a part in which he remembers everybody who's reached out to him, or not reached out to him, rather, who he has interacted with and whom in his program. And he would talk about them and how he thinks about them. And that's so beautiful, that your circle, firstly, of love doesn't have to be limited to people whom you have blood relations with or you're married to.
Well, I agree. I think love is contagious. So we talked about the Tuesday tradition, and that was really fun to hear about. But we were also wondering if there were any traditions or just memories that you guys want to create for Jasmira surrounding your beliefs.
I think both of us on the LDS side, both of us want her to feel a sense of community growing up. That's just like something I really treasure from my LDS upbringing, is like having primary teachers and youth leaders who just like gave so much of their time and energy and really just love and attention, just being my cheerleaders. I felt like I was amazing and I could do anything because I had always like a group of really cool people, like women especially, and young women, just building me up and telling me how important I was, and how, just like, they just made me feel special and amazing and smart. And so I think bringing Jasmira up, the community, the ward we're in is fantastic already. We're really, really lucky to be here. And so that's something we really want to remain like keyed into the community. And so she'll, grow up with that same sense of belonging, and hopefully pass that on when she grows up. As like a little snippet of our ward, when we moved in, I was pregnant with Jasmira, and a couple of the ladies from the ward came by to just welcome us and noticed I was pregnant, and they didn't know us at all, and they immediately threw us a baby shower, and the whole ward showed up in droves, like bought us amazing presents, just like totally set up her nursery and everything she needed, and they're just great. So we're really lucky to be here, and we're excited for that to be part of her life.
Oh my gosh, what ward is that? I need to move into that ward.
Yeah. Can we move in?
That's amazing.
And I'd just like to add to that really we are very fortunate to be surrounded by people who have so much love and affection. Like during that baby shower, there were handwritten cards, and they were more thoughtful than really any card I've sent my mom on Mother's Day, which hasn't happened in a long while too. So
Wow.
it's I need to up my son game firstly, and secondly, we are very fortunate. We truly have a circle that lifts us up and supports us no matter what's going on. I mentioned this earlier, that for me, it's very significant that Jasmira has a strong sense of belonging, and not without doubt, but a strong sense of God, if not religion. I had doubts. Is it okay to have doubts? Of course, it's fine. I personally believe that if you don't have prayer in your life, and there may be times in your life when you are just by yourself, if you don't have any presence of divinity in your life, it would be very difficult not to stray off path and rely on whether it's substance abuse or whatever chemical fix you're trying to do to yourself, even through, sensory pleasure, even through eating. At the end of the day, I think we find substitutes for spirituality by doing stuff that can be self-sabotaging. So it's important for us.
I was just going to say, I would add to that. I love that he said that, just that our hope for her is that she'll have a strong sense of God. And I think that's something that excites me about our family being mixed faith, is that I just hope she'll get, and I do believe that she'll get, the best of all that we have to offer. And I love that we have more than one perspective to offer her, for her to draw from. And so I hope that she'll, just feel, I hope that I can, help her also expect, spiritual experiences and the way that I've been lucky to have, and an abiding comfort of God that Onkar's been lucky to have. And I hope that she'll feel connected to God and also to the divinity that's in her, and her own intuition. I hope that she trusts herself, and that she can, sorry, that makes me emotional to think about her sweet self living her life. But I hope that she'll just feel the strength that she has within herself, and really be able to rely on her own intuition to navigate our two religions, and then, everything that she's going to find beyond that, and just take what resonates with the beautiful person that she is.
So beautifully said.
That's beautiful. And as he was talking, I thought that is so important. One of the ways that God is important to me is that you feel loved, that like if she can find that sense of love outside of herself. I think that's so important. And then also within herself. I think that's probably the most important thing about believing in a higher power, is feeling loved, by somebody other than yourself, in a very deep, out of this world kind of way, and a sense of belonging too, in a greater space, because we can feel so small. I have moments of but I'm just so small in this huge universe of millions and billions of people, but yet there's still somebody that cares, and there is an eternity to be had.
Yeah. That segues perfectly into our next question, which is, what do you do to connect with God and your spirituality outside of church? What brings you peace and comfort?
We were just saying, this is a good question. For me, I think these days, music is a big one. I love classical music. I love all kinds of music, but I feel like lately the moments that have really brought me like, a spiritual moment have been through music. And then I also think that the drive home from Target with a Starbucks hot chocolate and a podcast going while Jasmira sits quietly in the back is very important to my...
Yes, it doesn't get more heavenly than that.
Yeah.
Sleeping baby. Nice drive. Yes, I love it. Yes.
I was going to ask you too. You said that your parents were professional musicians?
Yeah, they are.
Oh, wow.
I brag about them till the cows come home. I think they're the coolest. They both are full careers. For the bulk of it, for both of them, they were in the Utah Symphony. That's where they met. And so they do that. My mom just retired, and my dad is taking a sabbatical so that they can do a duet concert tour around Italy that we're going to catch the premiere of.
No way.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to Italy then to see that? Oh my goodness. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is going to be like incredible. Wow. No wonder music is so powerful for you.
Yeah, it has always been a driving force.
Wow. What do they play?
My mom does violin and my dad does viola. They actually also, after they got married, they went to South Africa together and played in the Cape Town Symphony there. And my dad actually also did a couple other stints in South Africa before they were married. So they've been worldwide.
Wow.
That's impressive.
Now I'm like, no wonder you're so cool. Your parents are freaking cool too.
I could only pray that any dust of that landed on me. So thank you.
Do you play anything?
Not anymore. I know enough violin, viola, and piano to appreciate the music and how difficult it is, but I can't say I play. My dad gifted me one of his old violas recently, and I tried to dabble, but
so cool.
Yeah.
Honestly, any of that is impressive to me because instruments are hard.
They are. I can vouch for that.
Okay, well then we'll throw this question at you, Onkar. What do you do outside of church to connect to the spirit or find peace or comfort?
Driving through the Arches National Park and seeing stars, it's really, there's something magical about that place. And with petroglyphs, etc., we find ourselves in a very beautiful state. So for me, it's nature. Even it's touching a tree, sometimes it's a spiritual enough experience. Sometimes you realize how precious life is and how all of us are counting on each other, or perhaps without even knowing that, how important, trees are, and how we won't be here without oxygen. So it's for me, it's really connection with nature and rocks. That kind of makes sense for an idol worshiper, I guess.
No, nature is so healing. Our final question, you have two options on this one. You can either share an embarrassing moment with us and our listeners, or you can answer this question, which is, what is a job you think you'd be good at with little to no training? And it can be anything. It could be a dolphin trainer, or, it could be anything you want.
Okay, I can lead out here with an embarrassing moment. So in high school and college, I was a nanny. And when I was about 20, I kind of got like a short-term nanny gig before I left for my mission. And so I had this one baby that I was watching, and he was like about one. And his parents had just like baby-proofed the house, and they had like the kind of doorknobs that wasn't like a knob. It was like the handle that you have to pull, And so they had like these slidey things that they would slide so the handles wouldn't move. And so I went to the bathroom one morning, and it was just me and the baby home. And I managed to, like, just out of force of habit, I think, from closing those all the time, I managed to slide that behind me and then shut the door, and I didn't realize. And so I, got done washing my hands, and I went to open the door and the handle wouldn't move, and I had locked myself in. And so I started to panic, and I like was trying to break it from the other side, and the doorknob, the handle came off. And so then I was really locked in, and I tried to fix it. And then, just like long story short, I tried everything. I was stuck. And so I thought, oh, I'll climb out the window and see if I can, figure something out there. Maybe the front door is open. And I couldn't pop the screen out. I couldn't knock it out the window. And so I was there at the window, and I saw a lady. It was a really secluded neighborhood, and I saw one lone woman walking her dog up the street. And I was like, oh no, like this is it. It's now or never. And so I just like was like, hello, hi. And she was like, hi. And I was like, this is going to sound insane, but I am the nanny, and I'm child locked inside the bathroom. Do you happen to know this family? And do you have like a spare key or anything? And she was like, I don't. And I was like, do you mind asking some neighbors if they have a key? Because by this time, I had been in the bathroom for a good 30, 40 minutes. Like I was not getting out, and I could hear sweet baby just doing well out there, but he was all alone. So she went around to the houses in the neighborhood, and she did find a spare key. But by that time, the whole neighborhood was on the lawn watching me as a spectacle. And because the front door was locked, and
oh my gosh.
And so they came in the front door and got me out, and the baby was fine. He had just eaten a couple of dog biscuits, and that was the end of it. But
oh my gosh,
that is such a good story. Oh my goodness. And so I just feel like that could have happened to anyone, because some of those baby proofs are just human proof.
They were rough. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my gosh,
So
that is
that
too
was
good.
I love that we're asking this question now. It's my favorite. I think it's so great. Oh, that's so funny. Okay, Onkar, do you have something to share?
I'll be good at without any training. If I want to die, I would say woman hairdresser. There's no way I'm touching woman hair and getting killed. But men hairdresser or a stylist. Like I think I could be a decent men hairstylist. Don't ask me why.
Okay. No questions asked. I believe it.
Maybe it's when he comes home from getting a haircut, he like puts his own touch on it. He's got a
really good hair. Yeah, and you've got good hair, so I believe it.
Yeah, you have good hair and a good style, so that's probably I can see it.
Thank you. It's all those years of being a broke college student and being like, I got to do something with these hair by myself. So
side hustle. Yep, there it is.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Man. Well, thank you both so much for being here. We just gained so much from you guys. Oh, I'm going to need to re-listen to this one just to remind myself of all of the bits of wisdom you guys shared with us. Like Emmy said, it's so easy to see your love for each other and respect. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode with Onkar and Bryn. We hope their story of faith, love, and mutual respect inspired you as much as it did us. We're so grateful to have such a supportive community that values these kinds of open-hearted discussions. Be sure to save the date for our next event on March 8th, National Women's Day, where we will gather again to explore the feminine divine. We're so excited about that. Follow us on Instagram at That's Church Podcast for updates, and we look forward to seeing you there and in future episodes. Remember, it's okay to explore, question, and redefine your spiritual path. Together, we're creating spaces where all faiths and beliefs are welcomed and celebrated.